You're listening to Pathways and Means, a podcast that inspires and shows people how to tap into their creative spirit. We sit down with leaders and makers in every industry to talk about their process, what inspires them, and about how to build incredible things with the power of creativity. The future belongs to the creators, so come join us. This is Pathways and Means. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of Pathways and Means. I'm one of your co-hosts, Connor England, and we are excited to be back in the building. As you may have noticed from the new attire, the CPM team has moved. We have slipped into a new spot here in the Townsite Tower Plaza, courtesy of the great work of the K1 team, doing fantastic things to continue to develop and bring new vibrancy to downtown. And we're incredibly grateful and excited for the road ahead. So, check out the backdrop as it continues to evolve, as we get settled into this new space. We couldn't be happier. And speaking of this continued development of downtown, of the city, and even the space that we're in, today we've got a pleasure of bringing in a very, very special guest. He is a neighbor of the business. He is a friend of the team. And in his own right, this man has played an incredible part in the continued transformation of our hometown, the capital city of Kansas, Topeka, Kansas. So this man has a wide and deep experience in areas of value creation, ranging from food to marketing to nonprofit, culture development, you name it. He has done it and continues to do it with a smile and always with a heart of service. So with no further ado, we would like to introduce my friend, Pedro Conception.
Thank you for having me, Connor.
Man, we are excited for you to be here. So I think it's probably fair to say that in the landscape of Topeka, and you may feel one way or another about this characterization, but people know you and respect you for your expertise in the world of food. Do you think that that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've had a good pleasure working with a lot of people that, gave me the chance to help them with their food development and stuff like that.
100%. So, and I want to talk a little bit about some of those experiences here in a little while, but, for any massive experience to come through, it often comes from a deeply personal place. I've always wondered, as I've seen these gifts that you have, where did some of that come from? Was culinary something that was part of your family dynamic or your upbringing, or was it just something you kind of fell in love with by chance?
Kind of fell in love by chance. It actually came by my mother and dad. My parents actually, they were working a lot, so I was the middle child. So I had to take a role at stepping in and cooking for the younger ones. So at first I was like, oh my God, I have to cook, I have to do this and the dishes, cooking always involved dishes. So I was always very kind of mad at it. I was like, I don't want to do it, but I fell in love with it. My mom took the role. I started learning from her little by little and then eventually got better than her. But to be completely honest, this was not my first choice. I was actually going to be a lawyer. Yeah, I almost enrolled in college, for law. Yeah. But in the corner of my eye, I saw this guy walking and he was wearing a chef uniform. And I was like, what is that? What is that? The guy's like, it's a new culinary program. It's, you can make money by cooking. And I'm like, what? So I got so excited and I went for it. I decided not to enroll in law and go for my culinary degree.
Man, the world of a white coat and a toque has got to be a lot different from a suit in the boardroom. That's wild. I never would have guessed that, man. And just amazing the different life paths that it can take you. And this one has been just filled with all sorts of ups and cool experiences. So if I'm not mistaken, you've lived in a couple of different places around the country. Is that right?
Yes. Well, I lived in Chicago. I lived in Topeka. I've traveled a lot. And stayed in a couple of places for treatment and stuff like that when I was sick. But primarily it's been Topeka and Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Chicago is home to one of the best restaurants in the world, but certainly the United States, right? And if I'm not mistaken, you've had some encounters with that restaurant. Do those rumors serve me right?
No, I actually worked in a couple of restaurants in Chicago, and that's kind of got really like intrigued about cooking and really pursuing the career. I went to school and I was excelling, but honestly, it was a rough time with my family, and I just couldn't do it. Economically, I just couldn't do both. So I had to leave school and decided to get a job. But I was very fortunate that my professors and culinary instructors, they were not pleased that I was leaving, but they said, you know what, you need to go and work at certain restaurants. So I went into a restaurant called Blackbird. It unfortunately closed. And I worked there as an internship, and then I just fell in love with it. And then I just started, learning more, and I worked with Food for Thought. It's a catering company in Chicago as well, and they did a lot of catering, high-end catering. And I just fell in love with it more and more and more, and got to know a lot of people, in the area, and it's just something that I always enjoyed.
It's really, really cool. Now, I've seen kind of behind the scenes, you put together just some absolutely wild menus. And I think food, especially being one of those areas of the human experience, right? I mean, it is older than our species. It's something that we all need to survive in one way or another, and yet every single time you step up to the plate, you continue to find new and novel ways to inject creativity and wonder and flavor into something that you'd think after, depending on who you ask, 2,000 to 4,000 years or 10 million years, that we would have ran out of ways to continue to keep it interesting, right? So tell me a little bit about your creative outlet through culinary. What does that look like for you?
I mean, honestly, the key word you said, an experience. I try to create an experience. You're just not eating food. Food is good and everything, and it gives you that nostalgic feeling when you're eating something, but sometimes it really takes you back. It takes you back to when you had your first hamburger or your first fish tacos, or, you had this drink that you fell in love with. So it's just that experience. So Topeka, I feel like every single time, I had the ability to create something, I wanted to create that experience. I wanted to make sure that it was just not food. It was an experience. Take away like the Pennant. They sell burgers and they have shakes, but it's an experience there. You can bowl, you can do video games, you can eat food. That's what we should strive for. We should always create something, but always know that you have to create an experience for somebody to really understand what you're trying to create. And that's kind of how I go with it. Every single time somebody, tells me, hey, we need help, I really tell them that I wanna create an experience, and sometimes it's out of the box. And I'm not your, same old kind of guy. Like with food, I want to push the boundaries. I want to push Topeka's boundaries. It's making sure we create something different, and it's an experience hopefully for everyone that tries it.
Gotcha. So I know for some people out there that might be cooking impaired, an experience in food is when they leave a little bit of foil on their microwave food and all of a sudden they start to get the fireworks in the microwave oven. So walk me through what that process looks like when you're beginning. Maybe you play with the palette, or you've got an idea in mind. Like, walk us through, take us back to those moments before we had the Pennant, before we had the Iron Rail, and some of these projects that you were on. What did that look like as you were working through some of those initial ideas?
Honestly, it was just, I feel like any creator is trying to challenge yourself, to create something different. So a lot of studying your environment, studying Topeka. What does Topeka need? Or if I'm in Chicago, what does this area need? And really try to create something that people need, or make it different. I always challenge myself to create something different, think outside the box, and just make sure that we're pushing the boundaries. Because why not? Honestly, why not push the boundaries? Why not push yourself to kind of be better? In every aspect, in your creativity, in your cooking, and everything that you do. You don't want to be mediocre. You don't want to be just okay. So you want to push yourself. So every single time I created something is, how would I make it better? How would the world see it in a different point of view? How would I convince people to try something they probably would never try? So you have to attack it at different angles. So kind of just slowly studying, taking it in, and being realistic, also about, is this too much? If it's not too much, because sometimes when we create stuff, we can just go off the rails and just do this, and this, and it makes no sense. So you need to hone yourself and really be disciplined about what you could do right, and making sure that you can execute. So step by step, slowly, trial and error. Not everything that you create is going to be great, but from every error, you should understand what went wrong, and hopefully you get better and better and better. Sometimes we see failure as in something that we just, it didn't work, so I can't do it. You should learn from your experience. You should learn why it didn't work and figure out how you can do it better. We always take something, when we create something, it might not work the first time, but we just keep going at it and making sure that, it tastes good, it feels good, and it gives you that experience. So it's a trial and error process. Just making sure that everything works out, and learning, honestly, is just learning throughout the way, because there is some concepts that we really don't know the cuisine 100%. So we have to study about it, we have to understand it, we need to figure out its origins, the spices, everything, to making sure that we can understand it. So if we understand it, then we can do a good job putting it on the plate. So it's a lot of homework, but it's really fun.
I can see that. I think one of my favorite things about your approach, even the way you described it, and having seen you work in some different settings, is that you being an artist, right? You having the ability to just make food work in ways that a lot of people could spend a lifetime trying to decode and not get close. It can be really easy for a lot of artists to get caught up in the self, in the challenge, in trying to do something different to prove themselves. And yet, when we asked you about your process, you led on the note of making sure that we were doing something that was valuable and different, and what the community around you needed, right? It seemed to like your starting point was evaluating, where are these opportunities for us to best serve what it is that the market, that the people that we're building for need. And then around that sort of gives you a solid box for you then to explore that creativity. Now, I've seen that not only in some of the downtown developments and some of the other spaces in town where you've got a deep imprint on, but it's rare that somebody has the ability to make hits in multiple industries, right? So even your experience venturing out into areas of community service, of you working in marketing business, through Kit Solutions, you have even dipped your toes into the spa world, right? So there seems to be some common lines between each one of those. If you tried a bunch of stuff and it didn't work, right, it could be easy to say, I'm a person who likes to try a lot of stuff. But you've had hit after hit after hit. What do you think is the common line between some of those different items? And is it a way that you're looking at things? Is it a way that you approach them? And how can somebody who maybe wants to try a lot of different stuff out, what would you recommend to them so that they might find similar success?
I think the first step is trying. Just try it. You're already leagues ahead when you try for somebody that doesn't. You can have an idea and you can just think about it and dwell on it and think, I'm gonna do it, but if you never try, then it never happens. So trying is the first step on making sure that things work out or not work out. Some people have the most amazing ideas and they're sitting at home, and when they see it on TV, they're I've had that idea, oh my god, I thought that 20 years ago. But you didn't try. You didn't try to get it on a piece of paper. You didn't try and make a financial plan. You didn't try and build it. Somebody else did. Somebody else tried it. So I think the first step is just trying, talking about it, making sure that it works out. I started honestly seeing other industries as an opportunity to kind of grow. I don't know everything, and it would be naive for me to say I know everything, so I just try to learn different types of industries. And I take it as a challenge, marketing, for example, is just kind of seeing it almost as a restaurant, that there's different types of way of marketing, different ways of marketing, and in certain businesses, people say you have to do it like this, but I think everybody watching this and stuff like that, that's not true. everything's always changing. It's innovative. Somebody's doing it different, and you see them excel and stuff like that. Just pushing yourself of how you would do things, because there's examples of how to do things everywhere. There's books, there's seminars, there's videos, but truly tell yourself, how will you do it, and what makes it different from everything else? And that's how I attract things. I start really saying, when somebody gives me an idea or tells me, hey, what do you think about this? With all due respect, I kind of forget how they're doing it, and I just start thinking, how would I do it? How would I do it? And really have that conversation, and an honest conversation of like, would it work? Would it not work? Let's try it out. Because what's the worst that can happen if it doesn't work? It doesn't work. But again, you learn from it. So it's something that you just have to keep going, never give up, and just keep learning, because this world, people say everything's been invented, everything's been done, everything is, it's done. So therefore people are like, well, it's already out there. It might be out there, but can you do it better? How will you do it? I would challenge everybody to really think of their job and their hobbies, their ideas. How would you do things? How will you push the envelope? Because that's how you create people that are just become famous. They decided to do something different, So, yeah, it's just thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Making sure that you're always pushing the envelope. I feel like, so that's what I try to do. Push the envelope. Obviously, I started in food, but Kid Solutions grew into like marketing, and then just started, throwing out my ideas of how I would do things, and people started resonating with it. Well, you're right. We should try it. So it worked, so we just kept going, and not all ideas work, but you try them, and now you know what doesn't work, so you just out, now you start honing in on what works and doesn't work.
Right. So through Kit Solutions, which is an organization that has a number of different hats to really support those different areas of expertise that you and your team have, I think you're going through a bit of a new trying period with the program that you're in the process of rolling out, right? Are you at liberty to share a little bit about what you got going on?
Sure, yes. So we started thinking honestly about how the world is changing from restaurants to businesses. And I got an approach by Kent Lammers, and he came in and he said, we have an idea, but we don't know how to execute it. And I don't know if you know this, but Kit Solutions, people think that it's kitchens, that the name stands for kitchen, Kit Solutions. But it really stands for keeping ideas together.
Oh, that's nice.
Because in one way or another, we were always struggling with our ideas. In one scenario or another, we're always thinking about something, but there's always something that it might not work. Yeah, exactly. So I just kept thinking, how can I help people, kind of keep their ideas together? And usually that's how any business is. They already started their businesses. They're already up and going, but somehow the idea they started with is not working out. So how do we still keep their core values, their morals, what they stand for, keep them together?
That's wild.
So that's kind of how it started. So this program that we started doing, I kind of saw it that way too. Food is evolving in every single angles, but what really hasn't changed is school lunch programs, and things like that. So we decided to kind of attack that industry, or I wouldn't say industry, that those programs in a way there. How can we give the kids a better meal, and making sure they have all the nutrition values, and at the end of the day make them happy, making sure instead of them grabbing a bag of potato chips, they grab an apple or a banana. So we started working with Topeka Collegiate, and they loved the idea. They loved to bring something wholesome to their lunch program, because they're all about making sure they excel in teaching kids about everything, and they have a great education. But why stop there? Let's go beyond the books and making sure that we feed them something nutritious. Because if you start at an early age, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like kids start picking up better habits. So instead of giving them a bag of chips, you give them an apple, or a banana. But if they start these better habits at a young age, the possibilities are endless for them to grow up and adapt eating a healthier lifestyle. Instead of eating something that's fatty or greasy or just full of carbs, they ended up grabbing vegetables. Instead of grabbing pop, soda, milk, they end up grabbing water or trying kombucha. But we need to really give them those chances to experience, these types of food. Because some of us, unfortunately, we grow up, we don't know what polenta is or couscous or risotto until we're like 20 something, 30 years old. And we're amazed about it. We're like, oh my God, where has this been all my life? Imagine that for a little kid. How their mind would just blow up and be like, oh my God, this risotto is delicious. And now I want to try, broccoli. Now I want to try something else.
Polenta is the gateway side.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, you give them the ability to try something different at a young age, just like education, just like any other experience like sports. You give them food to try out, and then you'll be surprised how your kid develops. And hopefully, ideally, they take on these experiences and adapt them as they grow. And hopefully, keep going with the healthy lifestyle. I'm not saying they're all going to be vegans or vegetarians, there's always a healthy balance, but I think if we give them access to foods like this, they learn about them, and not just the food, but the culture, how it's grown, where region is growing from, and stuff like that. So having that chance to kind of like give now a child the experience, I think it's really awesome.
I think it's powerful, and especially being able to do it that early will make it so that they're a lot more willing to accept other cultures, for them to want to explore and to really like see the fullness of the world ahead of them. Now, culture, I know we talked on previous episodes and some of our material, it is one of the most powerful things that you can work to change, especially when you're doing it by design and not by default. It's also one of the most challenging, right? So especially given some of the regulations, maybe you're able to avoid that on the private side of things. Maybe the behaviors that a lot of these kids are experiencing at home or what the teachers are used to. How do you go about changing how somebody looks at food more generally? Because you can provide options, but some of those behaviors are probably deep-seated, right? What does that look like to really help acclimate somebody to a new way of doing something as basal to us as food?
I feel like we just give them access to it, and I know it's easier said than done. I'll give you an example. The kids obviously have fruit and vegetables, but it's never really highlighted. It's never really like put first. It's always an option. So we made sure that we put the fruit first, and we made a whole tower of fruit, and we made it inviting. It's funny you say basil, because I actually was teaching some other cooks and some of the kids about how if you grab basil and you kind of like squish it or spank it, if you will, the oils release and this aroma just explodes. Yeah. So when people walk in, they're like, oh my God, it smells so good, and it makes you want to try it. But I guess it's just trial and error. But I feel that if you put the right things, the healthy things in front of kids, and eliminate slowly, not all at once, the bad things, they will start wondering, I'm just going to try it. I'll try it out, and eat it and hopefully like it. We had this student, I wish I remember his name. He came in the line and he's like, peanut butter jelly sandwich. And I'm like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, peanut butter jelly sandwich. And I'm like, oh, we're not going to serve that today. He got a little upset. He looks at the lunch lady and she's like, what was this guy talking about? And I'm like, look, just try it. You'll like it. If you don't, I'll make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich if you want, And he looked at the fruit and he looks at me. He's like, can I have that? I'm like, yeah, I have a banana. So he grabbed it. 15 minutes later, he comes back and high fives everybody and said the food was delicious and asked for another banana. And the lunch lady was like, oh my gosh, she was almost tearful. She was like, oh my God, he's eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich this whole lunch year. It's like, yeah, that's all he ate. He never tried anything else. And it started making me think like, this kid, obviously he's stuck on his ways, but if you give him the ability to choose something different, but put it on his terms, if you don't like it, I'll make you something else, but you got to try it at least. Just try it. I think that really changes things. And I think that really changes everybody's perspective, You can try things, no pressure, on your terms. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do, great.
I love this battle cry of try, man. Just the power of choice. Like, I see that bubbling up in a lot of different ways that you approach things. Now, you've been involved pretty heavily in some areas where I think a lot of people have been curious and interested in trying something, but the stakes at which, it's one thing if an individual tries something, it's another if a city tries something and it doesn't work. And you have been a huge advocate for a part of town that previously looked very, very different about a decade ago. Now, you and your wife, Heather, they live in the Noto Arts District, right? And that's undergone a huge, huge transformation. And just like the culture of food, I'm sure that there was a lot of talk, maybe some doubt about whether or not that was, a choice that was going to work out, if it was worth trying. And obviously, anybody that's been down on First Fridays, that's seen all of the businesses that are flourishing there, there's not really much property left on the main stretch, and a couple of your businesses are located out there and doing very well. We see that transformation happening, and it makes me wonder, as you were going through that, right, where the stakes were a lot higher than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? What did that look like as you and a lot of other leaders there decided to try to take a chance to see if that culture change was going to work for the city?
Well, honestly, I guess being an entrepreneur is a risky business. It's hard, it's challenging. It's easier said than done to be like, try it. You're right. And honestly, sometimes it involves a lot of money to try, but that's kind of feel like that's the name of the game. If you tell all the people that created something, and they were so successful, they had to put everything in there. They had to make sure that it survived. Topeka, I feel like it's going through a renaissance. I feel like now we're really understanding and accepting that we could do it. The fact that now we see our own artists, we see our own entrepreneurs, we see the city movement. And it didn't just take, one individual. It took the whole village. It took the whole Topeka to understand that what we were missing, we already had here. What we were trying to be, we already were. We just were never looking at it. So perfect example with Noto. There was murals there before. There were artists that were there doing their own thing, but we never really appreciated what we had, I believe. We always looked elsewhere. We always looked around, Topeka. If it's Lawrence, if it's Wichita, if it's Kansas City, we always looked around. We never really focused on ourselves. As an individual, we do that all the time. We try to be better, and stuff like that. I feel like the city now is trying to be better. Now they're really focusing on themselves and how they can be better. So I think we're going through a renaissance. That being said, me and Heather, we love Noto. We love art. We love diversity. We love different, and kind of weird in a way. And Noto's kind of like that. Noto's inviting. Noto is, you walk in there and you see everything. You see murals, you see art chart walks, you see, restaurants, boutiques. It's just one of those places where it's all different, and we loved it. And we took the chance to just do it because we saw that it wasn't just ours, but even the businesses in Noto, they were working really hard. Small pop shops, they were working really hard to make sure that area, flourished. We wanted to be part of that. We wanted to be a part of a group of individuals that were really trying. They were really accepting the arts. They were challenging themselves to create something different. And me and Heather, when we saw it, we fell in love with it and we resonated with it. We wanted to be part of it. So we created our businesses there. And thankfully, everything's been working out. And Noto is one of the coolest parts of the town that you can go. First Friday, like you said, is packed. But you can see murals from every single, type. You can see inspirational ones. They just finished one that showcases the immigration of Native Americans, of Hispanics, of African Americans, different types of cultures, and it's a place that if you love art, if you love diversity, it's a place to be. And me and Heather, we want to make sure we're part of it. But it's taking a risk because it wasn't a very popular area back then. But we just wanted to make sure that we did our best to make it better. I think me and Heather have kind of like adopted this little motto of like aspire to inspire. What people see that we're doing, and maybe we can inspire them to do the same. Take a chance on your city, making sure that you can bring some sort of value. So yeah, we decided to be there. We love that area, and we wanted to make sure that it thrives. So I'm actually the board member of Noto, and I wanted to make sure I was involved, and making sure I talked to all the businesses down there, and making sure that if they needed something and it was under our reach, that we can make sure they have it. So it takes community, it takes engagement, and it takes a lot of work. But if you really resonate with the cause, I feel like you'll find a way. You'll find a way to build something. You'll find a way to push yourself to try, to make it happen.
Man, that's so strong. I think even looking at the risk level, when you were talking about how whether you're playing down here or you're playing at the level of like buildings and blocks, right? The sort of the risky business of entrepreneurship is very, very similar. It's just higher stakes. I almost look at like the self-image of a city. The way that you mentioned it seems very, very similar to how a person would view themselves, right? Constantly looking to the outside for comparison, never necessarily being satisfied with what it is that they are. And maybe some of that coming from a place of just because we haven't done something before makes us a little bit anxious about trying something new. And I think the story of Noto, the story of downtown, and a lot of these different places throughout the city that are beginning to get a little bit of courage because they're seeing people like yourself, people all over the city beginning to try things and for them to start to work, right? And that's transforming the pride of a city. And that's not just a Topeka thing, right? People have these creative opportunities all around them once they're able to make some of those pivots. So if we're in this new way of trying things, we're seeing what's possible, we're beginning to be more inspired by the aspirations of people like yourself and Heather, where are you looking right now? What are some opportunities that where we're at in the city? What do you see to be potentially some things that might be worth the try?
I mean, honestly, there's all sorts of things. I would say, try to understand what's out there right now. For example, here in downtown, you have restaurants, you have a hotel, you have eateries, you have everything. But I think we're missing now. I think what now we need is entertainment. And there is entertainment like T-Pack, theaters and stuff like that. But I feel like it's funny, I think you said this once, and I could be completely wrong, but work hard and play hard. I think you said something when you were at Forge, I believe. We need to figure out now, we need to build more of the play. Because as much as we work hard, we also need to have that outlet. We need to make sure that we learn that play is good. That we need to release, our stress, in healthy ways. But I think we need to start creating the play aspect of the city. If it's maybe from having more music options, or having maybe a music venue, or having more like a nightclub, if you say. I mean, we're from Topeka, so we don't have a lot of options here. So, and we don't have, I would say, I think we probably have one option or two options that play music, but they all fit their own little genre. So I think if we have more diverse entertainment, it'll be very it could be lucrative. It could be something that people, if they build it right, it can make money and stuff like that. And I think I'm always trying to see the opportunity of how new things, or how we can build things that are sustainable. I actually, if you talk to people that I deal with, I always talk about sustainability, making sure that no matter what, it has to be sustainable. The profit will come, it will come, but you have to be sustainable. If your business is not sustainable, then it's not a really good business. It has to be sustainable, and I feel that profitability will come as you build. But it has to be sustainable. So just looking at the idea, and I feel like right now we're doing a lot of things, a lot of restaurants, we're building housing. I feel like now we need to focus on the play. I think we now need to focus on where do we go here in Topeka to have fun? Where do we go to go dancing? Where do we go, to see a show? And if we already have those, how can we make them better? How can we partner up or connect to make them better? Because we also need to support the things that are out there, but making sure that we're always thinking outside the box of how maybe we can create something, and not necessarily competition, but how can we connect? How can we help each other, and making sure that we all thrive. But I really think right now what we should be focused on, and I'm not saying the only thing, but maybe there's a lot of room where we can focus now on play. We can focus on having fun and seeing what we can build. So as much work we put into the city, as hard as we work, where do we go to play? And I would challenge everybody to think that. Where do I go to play? Where do I go to let loose?
I feel that. I think whether we look at your efforts downtown through your own personal works, through AIM Strategies and their host of different projects, and really, your fingerprint is all over the city, and especially in the Noto Arts District, right? In both of those spaces, we saw, as a direct result of some of the new growth, established businesses saw an uptick in the opportunity for them as people started to come out from around the city. Groups like the Celtic Fox have not been hurting for having an increase in traffic in downtown, right? And it can maybe be initially a little bit scary for there to be new competitors in the market, for that to change what has been the most comfortable. But somehow I see what's happened in downtown, and I see what happened in Noto, and it leaves me excited. There's definitely maybe reason to fear what we don't know right now, but in both of those instances, right, the power of collaboration has won, where we found ways to take that which has been working and that already exists, and for it to come beside and flourish with a lot of that new growth. And it's my hope that hopefully some people today that are listening to this, whether they are already in an existing business that's making an impact on Topeka, or maybe there's somebody that is sitting on the fence and they're thinking, okay, why not us? Maybe we could take a chance on this. All we have to do is try. It might not be a guarantee that it works out, but you've had a pretty exceptional track record, and I've got a feeling that there are more of us out there that if they maybe had just a little helping of your courage, could help make some of that transformation possible here in the town or wherever it is that they're listening to.
Yeah, and honestly, one thing I want to say is just don't think that it's just you, or don't think there's help out there. There's a lot of help out there. Topeka really has tried to push the envelope on helping entrepreneurs. Do your homework. There's a lot of money out there that they're willing to give you to start up something, or at least not give you, but meet you halfway. Educate yourself. Find out what are the resources the city has to have. Because there's a lot of resources out there. And if you're thinking about competition is healthy, because it'll make you be better. It'll make you push the envelope of how you can do it better. And if you're for some reason scared about the competition, why don't you connect with them? Why don't you learn? Why don't you try and see, instead of being afraid of the competition, maybe connect and understand why they're doing something? Because you might be doing it the same way for the last decade, but you don't really understand the new way, but having, those conversations, that connect, that understanding that you're not really competing, but you're helping each other. Because let's be completely honest, there's 20 Mexican restaurants, there's 8-10 burger joints, and let's think about nationwide, McDonald's has Burger King and Wendy's, and they're all competitors and stuff like that, but it makes some better to compete and try new ideas and find their own niche, find their own mission, their visions and stuff like that. So competition is healthy. But the most important thing is, if you're going to try to start a business, connect with those people, find a mentor, and we're very fortunate that here in Topeka, we have those tools. Go Topeka has quite a bit of good tools, from, helping the entrepreneur get incentives. Their SCORE as the mentorship program, or anybody watching this. Send me an email. I have no problem if I have time to have coffee or anything like that to figure out, how to push you the right way. I may not have all the answers, to be completely honest, but I might, lead you to the right person to talk to. It might not be my forte, your business or your idea, but I guarantee you there's a lot of people here in Topeka that can help help and make it happen.
Well, and we might be sitting next to just such an individual. So you threw the opportunity out there for those who are listening in right now as we wind down. Pedro, for those that might be inspired and now have the courage to use that power to try, that might want to reach out to you and see what's possible and start that conversation, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can email me, or actually that's the best probably way, at pedro@createuplift.com. And just send me an email, and just, if I have the time, if it's not like an hour, 3-hour meeting, if you just want to chit chat or stuff like that, you can just send me an email, and then we can go from there. We can always use Messenger or text or stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just like you guys. I want to make sure that everybody succeeds. I want to make sure that the city grows, because as more businesses that we develop, the city will get bigger and stronger, and we'll develop a different culture. We'll develop something that now people are coming in to be part of. And I think we're heading the right way. Like I said, I think we're in a renaissance right now. If there's somebody that needs information, just let me know, and I can try and help as much as I can.
Well, there you have it, everybody. You've got a huge opportunity ahead of you. Pedro knows what he is talking about and has been battle tested over several years, several different businesses, and at the heart of it all is a willingness to try new things, to hold in balance both the true value that the community needs, as well as an opportunity to really try something different and to lean into his own artistry. We're seeing a massive transformation happen in this community and communities like it all over the country, and all that's necessary to make it happen is a willingness to get a little bit outside your comfort zone, take a risk, and most importantly, to be brave enough to try. So hopefully this podcast helps you find the courage to try whatever your next creative act is. Pedro, man, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad to have you.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, visit pathwaysmeans.com to check out a ton of additional content from the CPM team. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, where we post daily content and engage with creators like you. Signing off for Pathways and Means, we'll see you next time.